So for step 10, attaching the rear upper arms, well, you can see that we've got quite a few things to do in this step, and then we've got quite a few parts to work with as well. So you can also see that we need to attach these arms first and the ball connectors, because you can see that once you've placed this onto the chassis, you're not going to be able to get behind here to put the ball connectors on, or these pieces, which I think is why they're trying to get you to do it first. And then we'll put in the drive cups, we'll put in the O-rings, and that'll finish it off. So we just have this one extra piece that we need to put on, where we'll put the ball connectors on it. So I think we'll do this bit first, and then we'll attach everything to the chassis. So I'll set this up and we'll put it together. So first off, let's get the ball connectors onto here. So you can see that this is sitting this way when it is placed on the chassis. So the ball connectors are going to fit down at the bottom right there. So I'm going to use my box wrench here. And in terms of getting that positioning right, I'm going to make sure that I turn this and get it somewhat level. It's not level yet, but we'll see. It's almost right, but not quite. There we go. So now that I know that that's in the right place, we can just continue to screw this down all the way. And once you get to the end, you'll just know you can't really go any farther once it's at the end. There we go. There is one of the ball connectors in place. So same thing again. I'm using the box wrench because it helps, because you have something to grab, but it also gives you a chance to really figure out the positioning of it, making sure that it's going in level. And it's actually pretty level as it is. So we'll just continue. Whoops, I've shifted it. So let's just move that back. And that's up. So let's make sure that's going in correctly. Yes, now it is. So we'll turn this and get it in all the way. Just do a double check, but it's good. So there are the ball connectors in place. So we need to work on this part here. And you can see that there are these tiny BB11 thread rods that have to attach to these connectors. Now I find with something as small as this, they may be a little bit more difficult to play with. But if we get one more or less started, and get the other one on there as well, we should be able to turn both ends and get them to where we need them to be. So these are fairly tight, and they're going to do some wonders on your thumbs and fingers. But we're going to need to get this to the 8mm, which is looking about right as it is. So let's do a check. This needs to be at 8mm, and it looks like currently we're at 5, 6, 7, 8. It looks like we're pretty much there. So you can see that that is pretty much on the mark. So that's ultimately what it's going to look like, but you notice that one is facing down, one is facing up. I've got them both facing down. So we're going to need to make one a little different. So it should look like that. One facing down, one facing up. Do that check again. We're at the 8. And again, let's do a check over here. We're at 8. right about there. So I just need to make another one like that, and I'll do that off camera just so you're not seeing the same thing over again, but that's what we need to do. So there are the arms, and they're both equal, and they've both been set to that 8mm, and they're one faces down, one faces up. So what do we need to do? Well, if we grab our piece that we put the ball joints on, we're going to need to put those on. So I think I'm going to try and just push. Well, that worked easy enough. And do the same thing with the other side. There we go. There are the arms in place on there. And what do we have to do after that? Well, if we grab our chassis, you can see that this needs to sit like that on the chassis. So this is what's going to help secure everything else that we did earlier when we were putting the chassis together. That's going to sit there over top, and then we've got 4 screws which will then hold everything together. So let's do that. So these are the MA5 screws, or the BA5 screws, and we'll put those in, and I think I'll just hold it down and keep it flat for now and just use the table for leverage. So we'll put these 4 in place. And I'm putting them in, basically all of them in first. Just again, make sure nothing's binding, making sure that they're all going in properly before I tighten anything down. So that feels pretty good. So ultimately, there's your 4 screws that you're going to be screwing into this. So now I'm going to hold it this way so that I can go all the way in. And it gives me a better feel as to whether the screws are actually in place. So again, I'm tightening them down because they're tapping screws. You know when you're at the end, and you can't really over tighten. I mean, I guess you can, but don't go too hard with them. But that's good. So there we go. There is that brace. There are our upper arms, and that means that that part is done. So what do we have left? We've got to put in our drive cups. Now, as you can see, they're showing that we've got these O-rings that you need to put into place. So we need to put one down inside of our gearbox joint. And what's the easiest way to do that? Well, they're pretty much showing, if you grab one of our dog bones here, that bag, you can see that, well, it's in there, but by using the dog bone, you can push that in nice and flat, and then it's actually making its way to the bottom. Now, so let's just push. And there we go. There is our O-ring down below in place. And that's just going to provide a bit of cushioning, but also allows the drive shaft not to come out. So we've got one, and then we're going to do the same thing with the other side. Push that in and use the dog bone to push it all the way to the base of the joint. And again, there we go. So there are our joints with the O-rings in place. Now, they are showing they want you to grease the joint itself up. So I will. And it's not the joint itself up here, it's down below here. So we'll just squeeze a little bit of grease onto here. Because that'll be the metal on metal action. So we'll take that and we'll slide that drive cup or joint into place. There we go. There's one. And we're going to do the very same thing on the other side. So again, let's take the grease, Move the joint around. There we go. And we'll take that joint, grab our chassis, and we'll stick that in place. So there are our drive joints in place. Very cool. So that means that step 10 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 11 and attach the rear axles, and this will be pretty close to finishing the back end.